Satisfaction. The payment through penance of the temporal punishment incurred by a sin. Wait, what? No, that's not right. It's the fulfillment of a need or a want. And where do we fulfill most of our needs? That's right, video games. One of the most effective ways to achieve satisfaction in a game is through player choice. Feeling like your choices matter, like what you, the player, decide to do is achieving something. Baldur's Gate 3 is a great example. At the beginning of my playthrough, I stumbled upon this old ruin. I scared away the guys who were guarding the door, but the guy inside would not let me in. So I looked for other options and noticed a heavy-looking object hanging precariously and decided why not. And what do you know, it worked. So I went ahead and entered the dark gaping hole on the backside of this old ruin, thirsty for some sweet, sweet loot. But unfortunately, I was met by a bunch of bad guys who I was unable to kill. I learned my lesson about the danger of entering back holes and had to load an old save file. This time, I found a new companion before getting to the ruins and managed to trick my way into the front door. I was better prepared and had the advantage when taking out the bad guys. And I know this is a simpler example without narrative implications, but I was really satisfied when I saw my choices making the two playthroughs feel so different. There's the obvious player choice and RPG dialogue options that influence other characters' perception of you, actions you take that influence the story, deciding to be good or evil. A good RPG will allow the player to choose how they want to play the game and how they want to handle the different situations and have the game world react to the player. Don't like this guy, just kill him. Or wait, I said a good RPG. There we go. In New Vegas, it was great to be able to handle situations in a variety of different ways to choose from. You could use diplomacy, violence, bribery. You could play through the whole game basically killing no one, or you could play through the whole game killing anybody, regardless of how critical the NPC was to some quest. It was extremely satisfying to see how the Mojave and its factions would react to those choices. It's extremely unsatisfying to have those choices restricted. In Mass Effect 2, it was so satisfying to get your whole squad through the final mission alive, knowing that if you had made the wrong choices, any of them could have died. In Mass Effect 3, you had 3 full games of choices you had been making leading up to the finale, and all of your decisions culminated in just choosing what color filter would go over the ending cutscene. Not satisfying. But what about more linear story-driven games? A generation or two ago, a big concern for game devs was that there was not enough content in these type of games. So why would gamers spend the money on it? There was a time where a lot of game publishers were thinking of getting away from the linear single-player adventure. And the answer? Make everything open world. The freedom of an open world and allowing players to approach situations from different locations can work if done right, but so much of the time it was just the bland Ubisoft open world where the only choices the player makes is which location to go to first, and you end up just using the good weapon the whole time. Look at the new Assassin's Creed game, where your objective is to take out a couple different main bad guys, and the big innovation is that you can do it in whichever order you choose, but who cares? That type of choice for the player doesn't have an effect on the game world or change up combat or anything. It's insignificant. Actually, I think some of the best examples of player choice in linear story-driven games can be seen in the Resident Evil games. If we look at the older entries in the series, the player is dropped into an unknown maze with limited inventory space and limited supplies. As they progress, they start to piece together the layout of the map, find more key items, and get an understanding of the more dangerous areas. Let's say you're playing one of these older Resident Evil games. You have found an important item that you think will help unlock a certain door. You're in a safe room and deciding on how to get to that door. You might look at the path you've taken before and realize that there are a lot of enemies on that path. Well, do you take more ammo to try to take some of those enemies out? What if you need that ammo later? Okay, maybe you plan on just trying to run past the enemies, so you take some healing items. But what if there are too many enemies to just run past? Maybe you should take a shotgun and some shells and some healing items just in case. But now there's no room for additional important items that you might find out there. Well, maybe there's another path to get to that door. Do you risk the unknown with the possibility of it being safer? Even though it's a linear story-driven game, the traversal around the map is an important choice, the weapon you use is an important choice, the items you bring are an important choice, and how you choose to engage with the enemy is an important choice. And when the player finally achieves that goal of getting that door open, it is so much more satisfying because all the decisions the players made to make it happen. Compare that to the newest Far Cry. The traversal around the map is just traveling to a waypoint. You will use your best overpowered weapon, which the game gives you early on. Your clothing items or loadout won't make a difference in your gameplay other than minor damage buffs, but still, you're just clicking on people's heads, so it doesn't really matter. You can engage with your enemies stealthily or not, but again, you're just clicking on the heads of brain-dead AI, so it doesn't really matter what you choose. And when you finally clear out the location, that satisfying feeling isn't there. It's just time to go to the next waypoint and do the same thing. When games as old as Resident Evil were able to get it right, it's baffling to me that a lot of modern games don't seem to grasp this concept. We have new RPGs where your dialogue choices don't even matter in the scene, and the choices you make don't affect the game world at all. But at least you can pretend to be the Sandwich King or something, right? This is what you want to do in an RPG, right? We have new games coming out where the only player choice is which order to complete the objectives. We have been hearing, go in stealthy or guns blazing, the choice is yours, for decades, and if that's the only innovative thing you can say about your game, I think you're probably doing it wrong.